Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Thursday, October the 6th informational meeting. We'll start off with Commissioner Shores. Would you do the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please join me. Most heavenly gracious God, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time together. And Lord, we just thank you for the honor and the privilege to be able to serve the citizens of this county. Lord, we just ask as we make these decisions today and for the county that you would give us discernment, and Lord, that you would just show us the proper way to handle issues in ways that would be pleasing to you. Father, we ask that you just watch over this great nation. We pray that you would watch over this state, and Lord, we ask that you would watch over our county. We ask now that you'd go with us and guide us as we conduct the business of this county. For it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join us. We've got flags here for you guys, and we're going to face the flags in the back. So, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay. I'd like to recognize our President of the Davidson Community College, Dr. Harton. Nice to have you here today. Commissioner, if you do the honors of the veterans recognition.
We have started a tradition, for lack of a better word, of honoring all the veterans every time we have a meeting. So are there any veterans in the crowd here? Raise your hand. We thank you for your service. If you haven't received one of our pins, Davidson County pins, if you'll come up, I'll give you one. There's a $100 bill behind each one of them.
Dwayne said he's a veteran for that.
Okay, I'd like a motion and second to excuse Don Troll.
So moved.
Okay. All approved?
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, okay. Please register if you are interested in speaking at our public address. Are there any changes to the agenda this morning? If not, may I have a motion second to adopt the agenda?
So
Motion
moved.
to approve.
Have a motion and second. Cast your vote. And we're registered.
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And that motion carries by a vote of 6-0.
Okay, item for deliberation, the Davidson Community College, building maintenance request for new facilities. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Hartness is here this morning, I think to update the board on some new facilities that'll be coming online at the college soon, thanks to some funding that came from the state of North Carolina. So I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Greetings on behalf of your community college, Davidson Community College. I wanted to just give you a brief update on what's happening out at the college, give you an update on our regional training, emergency response and distribution center for public health as well. But before I get into the facility, I want to just give you some good news about the college. Just a few weeks ago, we finished our 10-year reaffirmation process with our accreditor. That site visit went extremely well. On another note, your community college is one of the top academic performing colleges in the state of North Carolina.
Kudos.
Every year, the State Board of Community Colleges publish a report on performance indicators of the 58 colleges across the state of North Carolina. There are 7 performance indicators, and your college is the only one out of the 58 that every performance indicator is above average or exceeding excellence. So we're the only one out of the 58 to accomplish that, and I think it's something we can all be proud of.
Yes.
And that leads us to our enrollment. Now, we've heard in the news a lot about enrollment declines in universities and colleges across the country. We've had some enrollment declines across the state of North Carolina, but your college is extremely healthy. At this point in our fall semester, we're up 6.5% from where we were last year, and we're up 6% from pre-pandemic, which I think is really the measuring point. So our college continues to grow. So we're proud of that and proud of the direction we're headed and the support we're providing for future workforce in Davidson and Davie counties. So let's get into our Regional Training and Distribution Center for Emergency Response and Public Health. This is just an aerial photo, and I've got a handout for you guys that you can see a little better maybe. Debbie, can I hand these to you? You guys will be able to see this a little more detailed than on the television screen. But this is an aerial photo and conceptual drawing from our designer that shows the location of some facilities that we're going to be bringing on board in late 2025, early 2026. To give you a little background on this project, first thing I want to do is thank Representative Larry Potts. Larry and I had a lot of conversations about the monies that were flowing through the state of North Carolina for COVID relief and how we might could get some of those resources here in Davidson County. And Larry successfully lobbied to get a huge allocation in the 2021 November budget that was approved for $16.2 million for this project. The focus of the project first is public health. The second is our emergency response. So this is where we are in the planning stages. We had the $16.2 million appropriation. It's the largest state capital appropriation in the history of the college. We immediately began selection of a designer, which we selected Clark Nexon out of Charlotte, North Carolina. They have designed a number of training facilities across the country similar to what we're planning. We have been engaged with our designer for many months since the beginning of the year, looking at advanced planning for this project. There's a lot of stakeholders involved, so we've had many meetings with a number of your employees, including your public health department. We've met with representatives from our local hospitals. We've met with fire chiefs. We've met with EMS. We've met with sheriffs. We've met with law enforcement. And we've tried to pull together a lot of their ideas of what would you want to make this training center unique for Davidson County. What can we build in this community that would prevent our employees and our citizens from having to go outside the county to get the training that they need? So that's how we've developed this plan thus far. We are extremely fortunate that our college foundation has acquired a number of properties over the years. Behind what used to be Subway and the convenience store across Old Greensboro Road from the college, the foundation owns 165 acres of property. We have worked with our designer to see what type of footprint we would need on that property for this training center, and have outlined 36 acres. So we're in the process of the foundation transferring 36 of that 165 acres over to the college for this project. We have a number of approvals. One of those approvals is for our county manager or county finance officer to sign off that once these facilities are complete, we would be bringing you a budget request for the operation and maintenance of these facilities, just like we do all of the other facilities on our campus. So Casey has a form. I have with me Laura Yarbrough, our Vice President for Financial Administrative Services, and she'll be working with Casey's office to get that sent on over to the state. Also, the next step is our selection of a construction manager. Once we have a CM at risk in place, we'll really get into the nuts and bolts of the design of this project, the details of the project, and we're going to get as much out of this $16.2 million as we can. But you know what has happened with construction cost, and we have a list much longer than what we could accomplish with the monies that we have. We'll be engaging with the state construction office, and again, our anticipated completion is January 2026. So what's the role of the Board of Commissioners? Your only role at this point in time is to sign off that when we finish these facilities, we would commit to submitting a budget request to you to cover the maintenance, utilities, insurance cost, just as we do other facilities on the college campus. We're not coming to you to ask for a land acquisition. We're not coming to you to ask for capital money unless you see things on the list I'm going to show you that we have not been able to include in our initial phases that we would want to tackle together as a community. So let's go on to look at what's included. On page 2 of the handout I gave you, and up on the screen right now, is the full master plan. This includes all phases of all projects that were outlined by the stakeholders that we worked with. You will notice item number 1 in phase 1 is Public Health Community Center. As I mentioned before, public health is the number 1 priority from this project because that's how we receive the funds. It's for public health purposes. We have been actively engaged with Lillian and her staff on what the needs would be for public health. Not only if we were in a situation where we had to do mass vaccinations again, but what happens if we need to have an evacuation, we need an emergency shelter, we need to do tabletop training exercises, if we need to do regional training for public health workers, if we needed to do any of the activities that would support the public health that we don't have current facilities for. We're in the process of designing this public health building, labeled 1, on our existing campus. So if you came on campus and you looked over to the left, you'd see the Smith Health Sciences building, but right before the Smith Health Sciences is where we would put this, at the top of the parking lot there. This would be right beside our science buildings, and it would give us good entrance and egress if we ever had to do mass vaccinations again. We're going to have a covered portico outside that you can stack vehicles. We'll have restrooms that are accessible outside to your public health workers if they were in that situation again. Inside, we'll have a lot of flexible space for regional training activities. We'll have some conference room. We'll have some facilities for basic law enforcement training. We'll have other locker rooms. We heard from your public health that, you know, if we had a situation where there was contamination, they would need a place to shower or to change. Mm-hmm. So we designed this, and the designers, you know, the first thing they told us is you don't want to just build a facility like this and wait for an emergency and have it sitting idle. So you want to use it as many different ways as you can. So we designed this facility around some needs of the college on an ongoing basis and the needs of the community. So this will be a very flexible facility that we could use for commencement exercises as well, large career fairs or job fairs. We could have civic use of it from the community. We could move some of our athletics into this facility as well. It'll be a large, flexible space for a lot of different uses, but the primary use would be for public health, and that would be the use if we enter into any type of emergency situation. So that would be the first thing in phase 1. If you look across the roundabout that comes from the college, if you rode over there today, there's 2 big road closed signs on that stub out of the roundabout. We're going to open that up so that we can get into that 165 acres, and that's where we'll develop the rest of the emergency response. So there would be an outdoor classroom, some storage for wood fuels for a residential burn building that will include a garage. We heard from our firefighters that a lot of fires start in garages. Mm-hmm. We don't have a facility like that. So this would be a residential Class A burn building. And, of course, we have stormwater retention that's listed there as well. There's a few items in phase 2 that we hope to move up into phase 1 as we work with our construction manager, which includes a gas-fired commercial burn tower, a fuel yard, an outdoor classroom, and then you'll see the largest item on that list is, and geographically, is item 13, is a large driving pad, same size as the Highway Patrol uses.
Dr. Hartness, can I interrupt you for 1 second? On that driving pad, the pit maneuver is a big item, and we seem to be one of the only ones in this area teaching that. Is that pad going to be large enough to teach pit training?
It's going to be 300 by 600.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Large driving pad, and we worked with our law and fire and everybody on designing that piece so it'd be large enough for a lot of multi-use of emergency vehicle training.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Also, listed in phase 3 is a 40-yard firing range and parking lot, and phase 4 is right beside that firing range, some additional BLET classrooms. And you'll see a lot of the different future phases and future props that we would like to add to this fire training facility. All did not make it into our initial cut, with the financing, but we feel like we can make some tremendous headway toward this list of items in our initial phase once we get a construction manager on site. This is gonna be a huge benefit to our public health department. We're excited because it'll be a big benefit to our law enforcement, fire, and EMS.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for the citizens of Davidson County, the more training that we can do with our local fire departments, they can improve their ISO ratings, which will lead to lower insurance premiums
yeah.
for citizens, for their homeowners insurance. So the third page is just outlining in the blue dots the initial phase. Do y'all have any questions about where we are with this?
Not so much a question, but you've done a phenomenal job. I was able to talk to some of your staff out at the fair, and just to see the excitement, you know, from the ground level now all the way up to the top, I just really appreciate you, you know, putting your time and effort into this. I know personally from a lot of the sheriffs throughout the county that we've talked about, just having another driving pad where people could just come and train, and like Commissioner Shores was talking about, that was a drastic need. To have one right here locally, that's gonna be a game changer, so.
What is the footprint for land transfer? What is that?
36 acres.
Yeah.
And the foundation has already approved the 36-acre transfer from the foundation to the college.
No, okay. So all of the stuff that's outside of that line is part of that transfer?
If you look at page 2, over to the left where it says footprint for land transfer, the red line, inside the red line is the 36 acres. The whole parcel is 165 acres.
Oh, okay.
So the 36 acres inside the red dotted line is what's being transferred to the college from the foundation.
Gives you some room for expansion.
Lots of room for expansion, yes. And, you know, there's some usable parts of that property. There's some other parts that are not as usable. You see that diagonal line that goes across there? That's the plantation pipeline. So, that's a utility easement coming through there. But we're excited that we do have, the opportunity to use this property. We would love to have everything that's on this list in phase 1, but we don't have the resources to do that. So we're hoping that we can get the burn tower in this first phase. Then we're gonna be looking for additional resources for the driving pad and the additional props and the firing range and the other things that are on the list.
Dr. Hartness, one more thing. The academics and the presentation that you gave at the beginning is phenomenal. That's one thing to, you know, to hold your hat on. That's a testament to the staff and the team that you've put together. Eventually, we're going to have to do something with athletics, because y'all are winning national championships, and, you know, y'all are the top of the tops. And not only are y'all leading in academia, but you're whooping butt on the courts. I love it.
We're very proud of our athletic programs, and we've even had some conversation about expanding athletics in the future.
That's good.
Any other questions about this project?
Okay, anybody have anything further?
The blue dotted line on page 2, that's phase 1?
Yes, sir.
So what is the maintenance request? Is there a dollar figure?
Dr. Harness, do you have some estimates for?
We do have some initial estimates, and again, this request would not be until the 25-26 budget year. But when we look at the usage of utilities, really increased usage of water, insurance costs, additional custodial and maintenance, it's around $200,000 annually. So, but those are initial estimates, and we'll get closer to that when we get closer to finishing the project. If there are no other questions about this piece, I just wanted to point your attention to the college owns, the foundation of the college owns 185 acres across Business 85. And if you've been out to the college recently, there's a lot of road construction. And there's a detour there. It's going to be in place for a couple years. And DOT and Smith Rowe indicate that that project's going to wrap up in the summer or spring of 2025. And that's going to open up access excuse me, to the 185 acres across the highway from the college, most of which is within this boundary you can see that's mostly wooded. So that's an aerial of that parcel. And then this is a conceptual map that Stemler had worked with us on a couple years ago, showing the roundabout and the new bridge on 85 right here, the new entrance and exit ramps to the college off of that new bridge, and then opening up this first side of the 185 acres over there. So we've gone through a lot of conceptual ideas of what could be placed over there, but one of the biggest things that I think would be a benefit to this community that I have visited in other communities is some type of workforce solutions center or workforce development complex. Taking some of our skilled trades programs, placing them into a single facility, putting economic development offices within that facility. I've had conversations with the public school system about Valley Academy and their needs. You know, that would be a great location for all those things on one site. We've got a lot of development and planning that would need to go into something like that. But I think now is the time to begin those conversations, if that's something that we feel like would benefit the community. And Mr. Chairman, I would invite this board or a subcommittee of this board to work with me in thinking about the future of that site. I'd love to take some of you to some other communities and other community colleges that I've visited across the state that have facilities similar to this. And let's talk about, you know, what are the possibilities? And if that's something that this commission is interested in investing in with economic development in the future, now I think is the time to have those conversations and begin planning. So I would leave that as an open invitation that I'd love to work with you and this board to hash out some ideas around that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, that's all that I have this morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Hart.
Thank you, Dr. Hart.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, we'll move on. All right. Continued discussion on the bicentennial murals. Ms. Harris, would you lead this,
Back
please?
in the spring, Amanda Murphy with Arts Davidson County, the Bicentennial Committee came and made a presentation of all the things we had going on. And at that point, Amanda had let you all know that they were wanting to do murals throughout the county, bicentennial murals throughout the county. She's tried to secure locations in all of our municipalities, but has been unable to do that in Midway and Walburg. But she's here this morning to present what Arts Davidson County wants to do, to see if the commission would be interested in helping pay for it.
Have they seen the mural rendering?
Yes, they have got all three of them. Which one do you want? Which one do you want?
It's okay.
Who drafted those murals?
The artist that would paint them.
I got a problem with some of these murals,
Well,
because
that's
I think Davidson County can stand for a lot better than what I'm seeing in these murals.
Well, and that's why I wanted to come here today to see what would you guys like, because this is kind of just a starting point.
Yeah.
And we want to to represent the county
I
well.
recognize that, it's just a starting point, but I think Lexington, I think Denton, and, what was it, Thomasville?
Thomasville, yes.
The Thomasville, there's a lot more to offer there than what's depicted in these murals.
Absolutely. Well, I would love.
I'm not saying anything against them, they're great drawings.
Right,
But
right.
it just doesn't represent, in my opinion, it just doesn't represent our communities very well.
I would love and welcome any feedback that I can take back and provide to the artist. I kind of just told them, I went to artists that lived in each of those municipalities, and I said, what does your city mean to you as part of Davidson County?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of what their vision, what they came up with. And I asked them to incorporate, the bicentennial. So they all realize this is just a starting point, and, we would love feedback. But we originally started and had hoped to have these in parks or on city buildings owned by the different municipalities. That didn't work out so well, so we had to go to private-owned businesses. So we have secured buildings in those three cities, and we have artists that are ready to work. So at this point, I just would like to know what you guys think and how we can proceed and move forward.
Could we see the other two?
Sure can. This is the Thomasville one.
And again, it would have more detail and color. This is just a rough rendering.
And this is the Denton one. Ooh, and it's
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah, I had flipped the thing over to look at that one. I stood on my head and looked at it.
We'll ask them to flip it the right way.
problem with it.
It's good that we have, Lexington, Thomasville, and Denton. It'd be really good if we had one that encompassed the county.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
And we
cause the county's turning 200, the municipalities and the townships are inside of the county, but few times, one thing that I've noticed while we were going through all this is we start to focus on all these separate municipalities and we lose the forest by the trees.
Right.
But it's, the county, that's, I'd like to see something that kind of encompassed everybody all together.
If there was a building, a location that the county would allow us to do that, I have artists that are ready and would knock that out and
There we go.
and do that, definitely.
Thank you.
We did talk about in one of our bicentennial committee meetings, something at the fairgrounds
Mhm.
for the celebration. So that was a possibility also.
What's going on with, Wahlberg and Midway? Do they not want it, or?
I couldn't get a response and spoke to even the lady that was the historian, is that what she said, historian? I'm just assuming that there's not buildings that the people are willing to have a mural painted on. I mean, I've reached out multiple times.
Because I've given her contact for the clerk and the managers in both locations.
Okay.
And of course, Wahlberg, they've got Donna, and Mayor Todd's not in all the time, so just.
So are these going on private buildings, you say?
These are on private buildings, and the people have been told that they need to be there for preferably 20 years, at minimum of 10.
And the reason I ask, I mean, I don't really know how much say we got on a mural that
We
goes
don't.
on somebody's building.
Well, if you guys are funding it, you have all the say.
You have all the say, and that's what I've communicated to all the building owners that.
I guess we do as long as the owner lets us put what we
That's
want
right.
to on there.
Yeah, right.
I don't like what we're putting on there.
But that, they have to agree to that. They have to agree to leave it there and to let
The
you guys
murals
have.
will go in the respective communities that they're designated for.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Commissioner Sale, I see what you're talking about, like for Denton, that one's very colorful, but I don't know about the train and Denton.
Yeah.
I think they perhaps would have a better idea of someone that lives in that community.
I actually met with the city council in Denton,
Did you?
and they
were happy with
they
that
love
one?
their train.
Well,
They do, because I was kind of a little bit hesitant about 2 trains.
I know.
And that was the story about the train going from Denton to Thomasville was very big, about the lumber going into Thomasville. So that was something that they seemed to want.
Interesting.
But again, we can
Yes.
make changes and incorporate, anything that you guys feel is valuable to that.
How much does one of these murals cost painted on,
So the original price that we said was $1,000 a mural for a 10 by 10 mural.
Yeah.
This bicentennial, I noticed it's not on there.
And she said she would incorporate that. She could put it in the smoke, or she could put it in the sky. It would incorporate that in some way.
How big are these murals gonna be?
10 by 10.
Okay.
a 10 by 10?
10 by
Okay.
10.
Pretty small.
Yeah, the best rate that I could get is $10 a square foot. So we could go larger, since we originally asked for 5 murals. We could go a little larger, or we could find one for the county. But that's a pretty cheap, because that includes design, materials, and labor. So that's a pretty.
Like I say, 10 by 10's not very big at all. I mean, that's not really what I call a mural. Mural is on the side of a building.
Yeah, I
Takes
mean,
up the majority of the side of the building would be what I would consider.
I see one of the people in Wahlberg that I don't know if you may have already, but Zane Hiscock
okay.
would be able to help you out a whole lot if for something to be drawn up. If we went to municipalities, I like the countywide thing, but I understand where you're going with the municipalities.
And we've got contact information for Zane, because when he's available, he comes to our bicentennial committee meetings.
Yeah, he is, he knows what's going on in Wahlberg and what would best represent the community of Walberg.
Right.
So can you tell me, like in Denton, where the building would be at, where the mural would be on the building?
We have two options in Denton, actually. One is the Cantor Shoe Building, that's on 9 West Salisbury Street. There is a mural on that wall that is pretty substantial. That building would need a little extra prep, because that mural would need to be covered.
Oh, so you're going on the same side?
Yeah, so we prefer the building that's at 15 West Salisbury Street. It's a blank, there's a big blank white wall. So that owner has said yes, but he shares it with his sister, so they're having a little discussion. But, so I think that that'll be the building, but we do have the Cantor Shoe Building as a backup. It would just require some scaffolding and priming of that building. In Thomasville, we actually had two options there. One was at Holly Hill Cemetery. They really were interested, and the other was at Vision Dance Studio, which is on Old Raleigh Road. And it's apparent, the way they explained it to me, because I'm not exactly familiar with every area out in the county. This one is near the new police station, and that area is kind of being developed more, so it's going to be more populated soon. The one in Lexington is the Tap Tees building that's owned by Mr. Clowney. It's right across from the depot, the farmers, where they have the farmers market in the depot building, and he's given us that whole building to do murals and do what we want with. So.
Wow.
Right at Southern Lunch.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I can go back to the artist and say we need more, or we need specifically this, or we need larger. It's all just going to depend on what you would like to see.
I'm kind of like Commissioner Elliott, and I understand this is in individual towns and so forth, but it's also a county project, so something that would bring all of that together.
So would you like to see one mural throughout the county, like the same mural in different places?
I don't know that we need the same mural. I think different murals is fine, but maybe if they could just incorporate, like the Denton one, that's the one we're looking at, something, just to incorporate the county as well, the county and Denton, together, and the county and Thomasville, and the county and Lexington.
Right.
And hopefully we can work something out to get Walberg, and, but just bring the county into it in some way other than just putting a 200-year logo on the side of it. Because that brings in the history, and that brings in, I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the towns would want to do.
Or turning 200, yeah.
Yeah.
They'd want to do their own thing.
That's right.
Right.
And then have ours. I don't know.
I kind of like the idea.
And they have, Thomasville has numerous murals.
Bunch of them,
Yeah, Thomasville has tons of them.
And they're quite attractive.
They are.
They bring a lot of people to the area. People love to stop and take a picture with a mural and come and visit them. So they do bring people. They do bring people in.
So, going to what y'all saying, maybe we need one just Davidson County.
Yes, sir.
I think that would be better, because I agree, if the city of Denton or Thomasville or Lexington, this is more representing them alone. And I don't feel that the county is being represented in that.
I like the idea of having all of them the same. I think that makes some sense. And across the top, instead of having the Denton go all the way across, you could have on each one of them Davidson County up at the top, and then the municipality right under that in a little bit less
A little
font.
smaller font. I like that.
And that way it would be representative of Davidson County at the top, and
And acknowledging
the municipality on the same one.
In line with that, Commissioner McClure, maybe not necessarily all of them the same, but maybe incorporate something from the area,
That's
county.
what they've done now.
Well, I don't mean specifically Denton or specifically Thomasville, but, something for a specific area, but it be more countywide.
So our mural, the bicentennial with the outline of the county inside. You know, if it could be changed where you have the outline of the county, you have the 200-year anniversary, but then you could incorporate Denton and Thomasville and Lexington and all that inside of it, or where it brings it all together, but it's still the county, you know, because.
You're saying inside instead of like the bridge or the.
That's very similar to
just because the county's turning, and this is the problem with some of the citizens that don't understand, just because the county's turning 200 years old, and that's not necessarily means Lexington's turning 200. But when we do this, it's almost like, well, Denton's turning 200 years old.
Right,
And
right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they got their own, you know, that's the way I look at it.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we do one of our buildings here?
That's
I would
right,
love
yeah.
to do that. I
Just
would
put
love that.
a big mural on it that says Davidson
Yeah.
County and come up with something there.
I would love that. That
would be
outline
amazing.
is, the outline is very similar to the mural that we're funding at the, Davidson County Museum. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's the outline and it's communities in bloom and it's different flowers from the different communities.
That's cool.
And then there's lots of historical pictures, actual photographs that are going with that. That's a great idea.
I was
But-
just thinking on the backside of the health department, you got a lot of traffic that goes by 2970
Oh, yeah.
there.
All the time, yeah.
Is that pretty open? I'm trying to.
I'm trying to picture it myself.
Is
and I
that-
can't-
Picture where the windows are.
Well, you'd have to go across the windows with a window wrap or something, I mean, you could, I mean, but again, when I see a mural, it's bigger than a 10 by 10, you
That's
know what I
right.
mean?
Well, we originally presented 10 by 10,
And I
because
get
of
it,
cost.
I get that, I really do.
Yeah.
But to me, a mural's
Yeah.
30 feet long by,
Whatever size the building is.
right.
The
you know,
end
that's
of
a
the
mural.
Board of Elections building too, right there, that pops out.
We can certainly
great.
go back, I can certainly go back to artists and have, new renderings drawn up. If there's just, you know, if there's one building and we can determine the square footage of that, we can do that and.
I'm not trying to get too complicated by no means, but, I mean, if you're gonna do something,
I
Do it
agree.
right.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Have we confused you, or do you have a sense of
No,
direction?
no, not at all.
We can be confusing.
Not at all, no.
And if
Well,
the
and
board wants, I mean, we can look at some of the buildings that we have here, to see what may work. Because I know that the building, the backside, I know that it does have some windows. So we'd need to figure out something to cover those with. But it's, like Commissioner Elliott said, we've also got the Board of Elections over here. We do have some that have some good exposure to traffic into the roads.
Honestly, I would prefer a building that's owned by the county or owned by one of the municipalities. 'Cause like you said, then you know it's gonna stay. You know someone can call us up and say, hey, this is faded or this is chipped or what's happened, and we can keep it looking fresh and nice. I would prefer that. But like I said, we went to private owners when we weren't having luck with that originally.
Well, like in Thomasville, we've got the Colonial Building where all the county county offices are.
Right?
the problem with that is so far off the,
It is, and I'm thinking of
The
that.
Thomasville
I was thinking
courthouse.
the courthouse, but the front of its majority is windows.
But aren't the windows up high?
The one there on Raleigh Road would be visible.
On the front of the building? The side of the building, I know it's got the panels.
Mm-hmm.
On the right side.
You're
is
probably
brick.
right.
The front of the building is, I think the
Yeah,
front of the
you're
building
right,
is
Debbie.
mostly brick except for the entrance.
What do we?
And the good thing about the Board of Elections is lit, so
Mhm.
it can be seen all the time.
And if we did it, if we just did one, see if we could make it larger and take this whole
True.
amount of money and put it toward that one.
That's
And-
right.
And depending on the height of the building and the location, we would need the budget to do scaffolding, to rent things so it was done safely, things like that.
Okay, anybody have any further at this point? Debbie, you need anything else? Or have you got a direction as to what we're
We've
looking
got some
at?
direction and we can work together.
Want,
we probably need to
you want
figure
to
out
work
the
on
building
one?
first.
Yes, sir.
And just one mural,
Sir.
incorporate all of it in one,
Mhm.
and make the mural bigger and
Mhm.
locate it on one of our buildings?
Yes, that's what
I'm-
I'm
Okay,
thinking.
so
with
just
y'all
to
on
move
that.
forward with one on a county building, so we need to figure out which building we want, maybe bring back some buildings,
We
some
probably need to
potential
figure out
buildings.
the building, a couple of choices on the building
That's what I
first,
thought.
'cause then
Mhm.
you know what kind of mural.
I think, like Todd said, the health department or the Board of Elections right here, because that's gonna get the most, especially, yeah,
coming into town.
and what it's lit like at night, and, you know, the size that we can have, and
You may have to adjust a mural for the building. next year.
Right.
That's right.
what I'm saying.
That's right.
Well, they do this, I don't do this. They do this and they know how to do that. They know how to move it according to the structure and
And
things
then,
like that.
but,
Is these different artists would do the different murals, or is this
Each-
one painter that does the murals?
With this project, with what I presented today, these were each different artists that were from that municipality, that were from that area. My hope was they would be from that area and have something very representative of what that area brought to Davidson County to make Davidson County, you know, the rich county that it is. But the trains won.
I would like
They
to,
always do.
I would like a couple of
And there's no chairs or pigs there.
Yeah. I would like a couple of the renderings with the county as a whole to be given to the chairman
Okay.
for a review. That way you can make sure it's the vision.
Is there anything specific that the board would love to see that you just know that you would love to see?
you know, in order to really get to the function of the individual community, I think you need somebody who has specific ties to that community, so they can give their heartfelt renderings as to what they feel
Right.
their city represents to them.
Now, we're
And
talking about-
I sort of like what Todd said about a while ago about, you know, we decided to do a mural, a county mural, one mural. The cities still can elect to do what they want to do
Oh,
within their cities there.
We need to come up with one for the county with our heritage.
That's exactly right.
Incorporating the whole county, whatever that is.
Yeah, and that starts on 1822, was it? But we started before 1822, we just came
I think
county in
the
1822.
old courthouse is probably the signature building in
Yes.
the county to have. It's identified.
Yeah,
And that's why,
So-
that's why it and Wilcox Bridge are on the logo.
on the-
because they're
Without
two things
reinventing
that-
the wheel, I mean, that incorporates, I mean, it has everything that we've got. It's got the bridge, the Yadkin River Bridge. It's got the courthouse. It's got our bicentennial. It's got the outline of that. I mean, whatever y'all wanted to add to it could be, you know,
That could be, you know, that could be the base, and there could be other pieces added, like you're saying, that represent,
Have that be-
Sure,
have that be-
like a
have that-
collage
have that be-
inside that.
Have that be the anchor.
Yes.
And then the outer pieces are different pieces of what
Absolutely.
of what
You
is
could,
in
and
the
you could
county.
star up the municipalities and something like
Right.
that, you know.
because I'm gonna tell you, if you could you know, the 200 necessarily doesn't have to have those logos in it,
right.
but this right here is our new logo for Davidson County.
Mhm.
And that's phenomenal. And the
It is.
Davidson has the courthouse right here with the county and then North Carolina. So if it could kind of be tied together,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
that's kind of who we are.
So, you
Right.
know, you're probably right. If you'd done something like that, you'd take the 200 and then inside of the 2 zeros,
Mhm.
they'd be bigger, so then you could post several
Things on the
things in
quadrant.
the,
Right.
in the
Right.
Because you know,
inside.
Wahlberg's gonna want the wall house. They are so proud of that
Yeah,
wall house
yeah,
after it's been
yeah.
opened. That is something that they would definitely want. Maybe go to our municipalities and ask them what they would like to see.
That's brilliant.
Exactly what I was
brilliant.
what I
Thomasville's
mentioned.
probably gonna say the chair. Denton may still go to the
They
train.
may still want
Yeah.
to, but.
And Thomasville still may want the train.
Thomas-
They may, Thomas may want the chair too.
Limit them to one train.
That's right. Let it be train.
They can
Trains
fight
are
over it at the
cool.
courthouse square if they need to, but one train.
Good, but that's exactly what I was thinking when I said Zane Headscope with the Wall House.
Mhm.
Because they got the heart, they know,
Right.
this is what I want my community to represent.
Exactly.
It wouldn't necessarily have to be inside the 2 zeros.
No,
You could
that's
actually
right.
fill in the whole county.
I love that.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I was saying, like a collage. It could
Yeah.
kind of use that as the
As the-
Yeah.
the
as
frame
anchor.
or the outline.
Have the
of
whole
base.
outline of the
And then
county
because
with the
it's gonna be
little,
square, and this
yeah.
would be the
Like
anchor,
where
so you'd
Denton's
have.
at, you'd have a train in that area.
I love it.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Where Wahlberg was at, you put the mural for whatever Wahlberg.
and then underneath of it, you put Denton North, you know, yeah, I love it.
I really like that idea. So I think I have an understanding
That's
of what you
brilliant.
would like to see.
And what size mural?
If you do, you're the only one.
I do. Listen, I work with artists, okay?
Let's go, Fred hit a good point. Let's go back to the size. I'm not so sure 10 by 10 be a fair
10 by
representation.
Oh, no.
Something like that,
That
no.
ain't worth the time.
Well, if you're
No.
gonna, but if you're only gonna do one, we can take the size of the building and make the mural fit the size of the
That's
building.
what
So
we need to
look at
do.
the buildings and see where we can get the biggest bang for the buck
Right.
on the building at.
Right.
Because if we're gonna put these little ones throughout the county, the people need to be able to read it,
Right,
understand what it is, so.
I don't know, are we talking about doing the one throughout the county and the big one? Or are we talking about
How about
not
one
doing
big
the
one?
one throughout
One
the
big
county
one.
and just doing the one?
I think just one.
That's what
one
we're
big
talking
one.
about.
Yeah, just one big one. So my question would just be, which building and what's the budget? And then we will bring you some new renderings.
I will keep my eye out for a building, as I'm
Amen.
sure everybody
Yeah.
else will, and then maybe out of our pick, we'll find one that.
And you said it was how much square foot?
$10 a square foot.
$10 square
Mhm.
foot.
And if you think about this rendering, it's gonna have to be,
Tall.
It's
it's
gonna
gonna
have to be.
tall
Mhm.
rendering. It won't
Yeah,
go.
that's right.
Exactly.
This
Tall and
way.
kind of
That's right.
more of a
Mhm.
rectangular.
Just depends on the building, put it on. Can't put it tall, you have to put it wide.
Well, just to incorporate the county outline, I think
Right.
it would need
Would
to
like
have.
to have, if you're gonna do the bicentennial in the center, I'd like to see one with a courthouse in the center.
Okay,
And maybe the
Absolutely.
the old courthouse,
okay.
and maybe a bicentennial in the corners or something like
Okay.
that.
Well, and maybe you don't fill in the zeros, maybe you just go where the cities are at,
That's right.
Mhm.
geographically on the county layout and put the courthouse there.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Cause you could put the 200 anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
I
to
wanna
sit in the
see
middle
one
like it
courthouse
does on the
in the middle.
on the logo that
well,
we
it'd
use.
be in the middle where the city of Lexington's at, you know, in the, y'all know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
right?
we do. We got you.
You got the county layout, and wherever Lexington's at, that would be where the courthouse would be, and that's pretty much in the center.
Geographical by
Right,
the county layout.
Mhm.
and even if you had to put the 200 somewhere else.
You could put it in a corner, I mean, you could put it anywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You need anything else? You got good idea?
I got it, and I'll be in
Got
touch
7
with David.
ideas anyway.
Yeah.
And I'll bring you some new ideas. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
done walked out while we was talking about a mural.
Thank you.
We're losing our audience.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, presentation on the Matterport system by Fire Marshal's Office, Mr. Ward.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Webster. I'm one of the deputy fire marshals for the county under Danny Ward Fire Marshal. I'm the lead fire investigator for the county. And today we're presenting the Matterport camera system. This is a three-dimensional camera. As you can see in the front, it's got 9 different cameras there. One of them is infrared, and that is how it captures the three-dimensional products of the space. And it spins around and captures it. It takes a couple of minutes. It's really easy to use, and we've become probably one of the foremost experts of it in the state. We get called from other agencies within the state, and I've had several phone calls from
Oh, wow.
agencies outside the state asking our opinion, for our help on how we use it and how they could use it and how it can be better. As you can see, this is one of the fires that we've had. I can't remember if this was this year or not, but we use it to basically put you or a jury, ideally, into the house or building, occupancy, what have you. We can systematically walk a jury through the house and show how we do our investigation, which is a systematic approach. And we can show them from unburned to most burned, least damage to most, into the room of origin and take them down to the area of origin or point of origin.
Wow.
And explain an ignition sequence of how a fire occurred and how it walked through the structure, and how we came to our conclusion on what caused the fire. We use this, we don't use it on every single fire, but we use it on most of our fires. Some fires are just overkill to, someone's storage building, unfortunately burns, and there's really no point in putting this in there. But for a structure, such as this one, it was a very large house, we can document everything inside the structure and present it to anyone in almost real time. I mean, they're there as we were there. They can see everything that we could see in the file.
That is,
Is someone actually
wow.
streaming that, or is that on automatic stream?
As you see that little circle move,
Yeah, is that
Chairman,
manually being done, or is that
he's-
automatic?
he's manipulating
marshal's doing it.
Driving over here.
he's manipulating.
Oh,
it over here.
okay.
He's walking.
Keep hiding over there.
Mr. Chairman, this is,
I wonder if you had the two options.
this is pretty much like we do in crash reconstruction. They're reconstructing the fire.
Yes, sir.
And it makes it extremely, you can take a jury or anybody, and actually put them in that situation that you're in, that he was in, just like I can do, when I'm
Really
reconstructing
cool.
a crash. And you can put that person actually there, then they can see the damage and the things that happen. I think it's an extremely essential tool in today's world.
Well, safe too. You're not walking through a compromised building. You
Actually,
get.
we are, sir.
You are.
They are.
So this camera, we have to, move
I mean,
it
to
every
take
4
the
foot.
picture, but they're not in it as many hours as you could be because you've got that you can go through, right?
This system saves us, in a facet of ways. So we do not, let this stop us from using still photography. So we still document with still photography, and then we run the Matterport system through the house or structure. And we can use it on vehicles, as you can see there. That is the city of Lexington's new fire truck.
Oh, wow.
And just to do it, to show the capabilities that we have, we documented their brand new fire truck that just went into service yesterday. And you can literally go inside the fire truck
No
and
way.
see what it's like in there.
Can you take still shots of the
Yes,
existing?
yes, sir. So once I have done the scan and it's complete, it renders, it goes to the cloud, and their software at Matterport
Oh, my goodness.
brings it down and makes it what you see. And then I can take it from this and create a still shot off of that. And that really helps because in a lot of cases, the still photography that we do doesn't always get the angle that I'm looking for to show it to the jury. And I can take this and move it around and manipulate it and get another still photo from that and put that into my origin of cause report or show it to whomever. This is, another reason we did the fire truck was, an idea that Danny and I have been, brainstorming on is community outreach. For example, Southmont Fire Department, how many's been to Southmont Fire Department in their community? Probably very little, but kids can jump on their website once we get that far, if we get that far, and potentially they can see the fire trucks, they can walk through the fire trucks, they can go into the fire station, see the fire stations. That's, like I said, that is an idea that Danny and I have kind of created, and are starting to work with to present to fire chiefs. The county can also use this, it's obviously the county's piece of equipment, but if there's a building or a structure that commissioners or division head, department head would like to have scanned, we could do that, and now it can be presented. When we were discussing doing this for the commissioners, we talked about even scanning this room just for y'all, and we said, well, it's probably better to show you a fire scene or
I like that better.
the fire. Yes, sir.
So who takes this camera into each room of this house?
9 times out of 10, it's myself and Eric Barker, the other deputy fire marshal.
So you gotta take it into each room,
Yeah.
Oh, you take it.
shots,
Yes, sir. So it moves basically. We'll start outside. Generally, I try to use the front door of the house if it's a house,
and work your way around the building?
and work. We can't. Sometimes we can go outside. Danny, if you'll go to 621 Summit Drive.
This is one y'all have used it on recently?
Yes, sir. So this was accidental fire, and so like I said, this camera uses infrared technology. Sunlight affects it tremendously. But because this fire, I think, if I remember correctly, it came out at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to the fire 2:30, 3 o'clock, began my investigation, started documenting it, and by the time I was finished with most of my documentation, the sun was starting to come up, and it was it's like that twilight time, the perfect lighting conditions for me to be able to document the outside of the house and then move my way inside before the sun got too high to affect it. So on most of your fires that we're gonna use this on, it's middle of the day or something like that, or the roof is gone and sunlight's hitting it at the right angle, that it will not allow the camera's infrared to get the right signal back from where it's bouncing it off of. And it will distort the image or will not even let the image be taken. So like I said, this fire,
So how do you do that then? I mean, how do you take pictures?
very carefully. It's a very sensitive piece of equipment that we have to use, and it's,
So if you can't take them in the daytime with the sunlight?
we try to do it, you know, honestly, most of our fires occur in the middle of the night. And so, and a lot of times, we don't need the outside because the fire's inside. And so we document the interior, of it and can work from least damaged to most damaged, unburned.
So this one from the top, how do you get that one?
It's the computer system, the technology inside the camera. It uses the infrared and it sends it directly out. And you can see it, this is the aerial view. It does a dollhouse, which is that, and then you can do the 360 all the way around and look at it. Another great thing that saves us a tremendous amount of time is when we make a scan and send it to, you know, upload it to the cloud. Matterport gets it, their technology renders it down to what you're seeing. We can then get, we can get a schematic made. They'll make a schematic for us based off of our scan, and it's accurate down to, I think, 3/100ths of an inch. And I use that in my origin and cause reports to show what the layout of the house is. I can document where the bedrooms were, the living room, the fire room, the point of origin, area of origin, so on and so forth. As we were saying, the sunlight really messes with this camera. So you guys have recently approved us to purchase a brand new one that gives us the ability to scan outside. The technology changed from infrared to LiDAR. So the new technology in your iPhone, I think it's what, iPhone 13s, 14s, the camera system has LiDAR and basically sends out thousands or millions of dots off the camera system and gives you a 3D rendering of a room or structure, and the sunlight doesn't affect it. So now we have the capability, once it comes in, we'll have the capability to do inside, outside, everything with it, and document it, and give you, the audience, the jury, whoever it may be, the full 100%.
Pretty much every structure.
Scene. The district attorney absolutely loves this for our arson cases that we have, because I can put the jury into the room, into the house or building, and explain. And we've even used it on vehicle fires. It's a little bit more, it's a little trickier with the vehicle, obviously, because it's smaller. It still works as long as the lighting is right with the sun. But moving the camera, as you can see, it's a tall base, getting it inside of a vehicle to scan.
So does the sheriff's department have something like this, Casey?
I'm not sure.
I can answer. They do not. They are working on it. We've actually worked with the sheriff's office on a case that they had. They called us out. We ran it, documented the scene for them, and then they have access to that documentation. It is my understanding that they have been working on getting this for their detectives, and I will be working with them to train and get them. And as far as training goes, we've also been called to multiple municipalities, others, to document or to assist them with their new product. And so I'm sure all of you are aware of the fire on Main Street last week. The city of Lexington asked us to come in and help with their investigation, and we used it. Unfortunately, I can't show you that one because it's still an active investigation, and you guys understand that.
What's the price we're looking at for a camera like that?
This camera, when we bought it last year, was $3,500.
With everything.
With everything. That includes the base, the case, everything.
Really?
I don't think it costs more than that.
So what we're talking about here is just upgrading. We're getting a new one, the newest version.
Yes, ma'am. And this is,
About
once
the
we have
price
that
of a new
one,
iPhone.
we can bring it in and show you that one too. And it looks a little different. Like I said, it's like, I literally just ordered it Monday. So when it gets here, we'll get to play.
Now, what do they charge you to do this, though? I mean,
So our annual subscription is $700, about $800.
that's reasonable. I'm really surprised.
And so, well, this product was designed for real estate, and we use it as orders and calls device tool. And like I said, we've become a very
Popular demand, huh?
yes, sir, and it's growing. More municipalities and county governments are gaining it and using it in the fire service, and we use it so often that Matterport,
Like
they've
information on
created their own government
For facility
divisions
inspections. That'd be
to work with us,
perfect.
and they refer other departments to us, to me, for questions and answers and advice, so on and so
So what exactly, I'm a little bit confused. What exactly are you asking the board to approve for?
We're not, sir. We're presenting this to you. Casey.
Nothing. A few weeks ago, I was over to Danny's and, I realized they showed me this. And I realized everybody needs to see this. And then I also realized perhaps, our fire marshal's office is on some kind of cutting edge technology that nobody else is dealing with. So I said, this needs a little showtime.
I think it's great, but
It
I'd
is.
like to, I don't know if.
I was over there for a
As the
meeting and
other
I
board
spent
members-
10 minutes like, click on that thing right there, move this over here, move that over there. And so I started doing that instead of the meeting and,
When I see the benefits of this,
That's awesome.
knowing how court operates as well, I think I'd like to ask you to check with the sheriff, see where he's at, because I think they definitely need this.
This is a game changer. When
Yeah,
you go
I
to
think they
court
definitely
and you
need
can,
that equipment.
you're standing there trying to, and Sherry can tell you, I'm trying to explain to the
Oh,
council
I see, yeah.
what's going on.
I can't quite,
This stops all that.
I can't
and
quite understand how it picks top of that building up unless you get to a high spot.
It's just,
I
it's
just
part
don't
of the,
understand.
part of the magic, I think.
there's millions,
Yeah, part of the
there's
magic.
millions and billions.
The different cameras, and there's 2 on this side, so you've got a total of 9 cameras.
Yeah.
And you get up, down, and the only thing you can't see is directly below you and directly above you. But the way you get away from that is move it forward,
Move it.
do another scan,
Yeah.
and now you can see
Mhm.
that spot.
Right.
And,
There's literally
To me,
millions
that's-
and billions of
that's-
points.
I love that, that's great.
It's a very, very useful tool that
Yeah.
we have gotten very good at using.
I don't know why.
And the new one is not gonna do anything but take us even farther and make our cases even better. And then,
Oh, I can see that.
and then using it for other resources such as public outreach, it's gonna make that even better, once we get to getting all that figured out and what we're gonna.
You know, for
I see the
insurance
benefit.
purposes, documenting your facilities, documenting the stuff inside the facilities, and the expense that you have a fire, that's a game changer. I mean,
So we work very closely with the insurance companies, obviously, because they'll send their own insurance
Mhm.
investigators out, and they'll ask, what do we see, what do we document, and they'll request all that.
Mhm.
And they don't get this scan, they get access to view it, because it's a web-based system. So basically, I'll send them a link that they can view it, because they can't edit it, because we don't want, when it comes to orders and calls investigations and taking it to court, anything that we've edited, we've manipulated.
Can't
So
be evidence.
then it changes, it can't use it as evidence. So once we scan it, we don't do anything other than document the rooms and say, bedroom, living room, kitchen, so on and so forth, and then it's locked. And then there's, I can send it out and they can view it, and that's all they can do.
Very, very interesting, very good presentation. I don't know, however, how the sheriff's department would use this, because they don't do much fire investigation.
Well, they can use it for
Murder
their,
investigations.
For what?
Murder investigations. Danny, go back to what you
How
was
you
doing
gonna
there
murder
just a minute.
investigation
I was-
after the fact?
So Danny was telling me that you can select matter, so that could be like gun shells or anything like that.
Measuring, Danny, was what I was wanting you to
No,
let
sure
your
not.
murder go.
so you can, we can,
So what you can see here is,
I didn't say that. I said that you have
what
to
you can see here is
investigate.
they can actually measure stuff. And like you can show trajectories, I'm talking about the sheriff's office now, because you asked that question. The sheriff's office could use this showing trajectories, if somebody shot into a house where a murder weapon was laying.
Blood splatters.
If they say that, the person couldn't have got to a weapon at that you can show that it was only 3 feet away and they could have gotten to it. The sheriff's office can go inside of a crime scene and do the exact same thing that these guys are doing, and I applaud you again. This is very innovative, and it's great, because with 30 years in law enforcement, I wouldn't even have thought about this.
Hey, Danny,
The advantage to
Can
this
you-
is they can go back 3 years later
That's
or
right.
5 years later.
Absolutely.
can you explain to
And
them what you told
In the
me
murder
about
cases
selecting of a
and
matter?
these
You can
fire
hit play and
investigations where somebody
take
may
you
have
up the
been
elevator
killed,
to the
it may be
pla-
6, 7, 8 years before that actually comes to
Okay.
court.
Well, if I may interject for a second, so this will, with the sheriff's office,
Okay.
it's gonna work very well for them, because they're not dealing with, such dark conditions, the roof being burned off the house, or so on and so forth. They're in a normal house where normal lighting is there, and they're not gonna have the difficulties that we may run into,
a great
because
idea.
the sunlight and stuff.
Yeah, like I say, I'm surprised they don't have it on.
Great job, guys.
They're working on
Good
it, and
job.
they've, like I said, they've come to me to help.
So,
Be good, sounds good to me.
So Commissioner Elliott, I was kinda having a little side conversation. I don't have the example anymore because we've kinda cleaned out some of our training files, so to speak. But you can take, your 3D or 360 view and insert other content, like if you have a specific thing that you want to, map, and you're a customer, or you wanna say, well, where's that located at in the county, you can click that button and it'll take you into Google Maps and drop you right where we put that, what they call a matter tag. Or if you wanted to build a map of a particular building such as this, you could actually show you the map walking into the elevator and then looking at the elevator keys and press a button and it'll say 4th floor, and it'll take you directly to the 4th floor, skipping all the other content. And then you can map, say, to Casey's office.
that's phenomenal.
She chose to do. So, like John said, it was really built around the real estate industry, but we've incorporated that, and they're finding a big market in fire and law enforcement. And
Y'all changed the game, man.
Great job,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah.
Like I said, they call us, regularly. I have to go, I think, next week after next, to, Cabarrus County, to teach those guys how to use it. I've presented it, to, a conference that we go to, NICE. I presented them to other fire marshals agency, Department of Insurance, the guys that we work with regularly, they came down and had me run it through several of those guys so that they can potentially pitch it to their
Absolutely.
superiors to get something like this if possible. So, and like I said, we work with Thomasville, Lexington, all the time. So it's around, like I said, we just did the Main Street fire, and I think we
Good
did
job.
92 scans. And we've gotten extremely quick with it because we know how it works now, and
That's
we use it so
awesome.
often. So we appreciate your time.
Great job, guys.
Good job.
Great job.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
That's phenomenal, man.
Mr. Chairman, before they go, I couldn't have, again, I invited Danny in over here, his staff, and I want to thank him for coming, just because when I saw this, I kind of, even a layman such as myself could recognize kind of what we were looking at, or I was looking at. So, we're always talking about advertisement, if you will, of our staff, and when we do good, we got things going on, maybe we're leaders in the state, and I saw this as an opportunity. So, Danny and them, done a great job, so I appreciate all their hard work.
Amazing.
It fascinated me, so I knew it'd fascinate everybody else.
Good job, Dan. All right, turn that down. Okay. North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission update on deer population, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Yates asked me about, the possibility of asking the wildlife folks to come in. I think we've had some issues out in the community with them, and I'm gonna let these gentlemen turn it over to you all in just a second. If you wanna come on up, please, and, some issues with the deer population and perhaps the notion of could we during hunting season, have a way to dispose of carcasses maybe a little bit easier at our landfills. So I'm gonna let these gentlemen tell you kind of what's going on with the deer population, and then we'll talk after that about the other options at the landfills.
First, my name is Rupert Medford. I'm a wildlife biologist with the Resources Commission, and I appreciate that background. I don't know who reached out to us, but I wasn't privy to the first part of that. And so I think I should probably back up and say, first of all, most of the fuss about deer recently has to do with some disease issues. And North Carolina has been a CWD-free state, that is chronic wasting disease. And I can talk about that particular disease in depth if you want to, but the short version is that it's a neurologic disease. It's transmissible from deer to deer, but not people. Once it's on the landscape, it's permanent. So far as we understand it, it will always be there. And we're about the 30th state to find CWD. This year also, right after detecting CWD, just happened to be a worse than average year for another disease that we call EHD. I wasn't in charge of the acronyms. They sound similar. The diseases are very different. EHD is it's extraordinarily common. It's cyclical. It's been around for as long as there have been deer. But you've had, in fact, Davidson County, I work in the southern Piedmont, a 10-county area, and Davidson County, for whatever reason, was the worst county for EHD this year. So we had lots of reports of landowners, it's usually hunters, that find dead deer or sick deer near water. As far as the CWD goes, both of those detections were in Yadkin County. And I'd encourage you guys to go to our website for all the details. So we've got a map there. But Davidson County borders our disease management area, calling it the SSA, but it's just a surveillance area for CWD investigations. We do a certain amount of sampling. We've been sampling for CWD for 20 years, and we only have detected it in Yadkin County this past year. As far as the deer population in Davidson County, it is strong, arguably higher than it ever has been. 2020 was a record harvest year for Davidson County, and last year was very similar. Hunters registered around 2,700 deer just in Davidson County. That does not include deer that were taken under depredation permits, struck by vehicles, et cetera. That's just what hunters harvested and registered. Hunting's important for a number of reasons. First and foremost, keeping wildlife populations in check. Yeah. It's important economically, and of course we have a strong hunting heritage, not just in Davidson County, but certainly in Davidson County. So regarding CWD, one of the biggest issues, and it's really hard to talk about CWD because it's not a disease it's not like many other diseases. It is transmitted by a protein, a prion. It's a damaged protein. It's made up of the same amino acids as the proteins that make up the rest of the animal. But when this thing gets damaged, it replicates and it makes more damaged proteins. And it occurs primarily in the central nervous system, so in the brain, spinal cord, et cetera. But the longer the animal has the disease, the more infected the animal becomes with it. In other words, the prions are present in more and more parts of the animal, and it sheds these prions into the environment and through contact with other deer. It sounds really scary, so let me remind you that so far as anyone knows, humans cannot get this disease. There are similar diseases in humans. Crutchfeld-Jacobs is one that is a transmissible disease that is also from one of these misfolded proteins. But I would compare it to one that we're a lot more familiar with that's not transmissible, and that's dementia or Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is caused from an aggregation of proteins in the brain, and it causes cognitive decline. And you see the same thing in deer. Eventually, they lose fear of people, they quit eating, and so they sort of waste away, as the disease implies. So I guess where you guys would come in is, and I hope we don't find CWD in Davidson County this year. I think it was my most sampled county last year, just because there's so much hunting here and hunting culture. And I've got some good relationships with taxidermists and processors that are very helpful. But when deer die, or when deer are harvested, typically they're just sort of put back on the landscape, the parts that are not edible or that are not used for trophy purposes. It is better to get those animals off the landscape or underground. And so one of the recommendations that we have for hunters, and that we've done a good job of publishing this, but it's never good enough, is just to take those animals to lined landfills. I don't know what rules you guys have at your landfill. I live in Montgomery County, and in Montgomery County there is a fee for taking animal carcasses.
There's a fee here.
It is a reasonable deterrent. However small the fee might be, And anything that we can do to encourage hunters to take their carcasses to lined landfills would be a positive. That's our number one thing. That was one of the things that was mentioned that we could probably talk to you guys about. So if it is possible that a fee could be removed, and just for example, in Montgomery County, if I take a carcass, they won't let me drop it off at the front gate. They want me to drive all the way up to the top of Mount Trashmore where they dump biosolids and everything else. And again, a deterrent. So anything that could be done. Do you guys own the landfill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that helps. In Montgomery County, it's a private company that owns it. But if there is something that could be done to allow hunters carcass disposal options, that would be wonderful. Our goals as a wildlife agency are to, I can't say stop, but slow the geographic spread of this disease and slow the prevalence rate of it. Once it is in a location, we generally consider that it's going to be there forever. So we don't want it in Davidson County. If it does get here, we don't want it to spread. For that, any questions that you guys might have.
Debbie, isn't that something we've got coming up to look at, the fee for certain period of months, for a certain period of months that we're looking at setting the fee aside for the disposal of carcasses? I thought that was something we had coming up on one of the...
That's what we're here for today.
Yes.
Right.
Well, this just says for information only.
Well,
Well,
you all would need, we'd probably move it to a Monday night meeting for you all to actually vote on it. So
Yeah.
we were looking for your all's direction.
I
where
thought
we
I
wanted
had
to go from
seen
here.
where we were, maybe it was in this right here.
I asked Casey to reach out to these folks just to see if y'all would be interested in waiving the fee. I think we get $8.
I think it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
And it's a certain period of time, if I remember right.
No, I just wanna
Waive it.
So if you waived it during deer season, say September to the end of January, then that would help. You will still have other deer carcasses on the landscape from, and I don't know how you guys handle things in different parts of the county, but automobile collisions, even depredation shoots and things like that. So if you waived it all together, that would probably be the best. But again, deer season would capture well over 90%.
We have a lot of farmland, and some of the farmers have those permits to hunt year-round to protect their yield. So I would think if we were gonna do that, just, keep it to deer, but to have that year-round for the carcass.
All right. Just eliminate it altogether, yeah.
Any idea about how many were in Davidson County last year
Are you asking me about like the standing population?
that went to the landfill?
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah.
what'd you say, 2,700?
That was the harvest, and I will tell you.
2,700 shots, so either there's 2,700.
And documented.
Throw that on the side.
Yeah, and documented. So at least, I would say at least 3,000 deer in this county.
Yeah.
And most of those, different hunters do different things. Sometimes new hunters, they dump carcasses off bridges and things like that. That's illegal. But it is lawful for them to just dump the bones in the gut pile and whatnot behind their house in the woods. We would prefer them not do that. We're not going to stop them from doing that. And in fact, if you think about it, if a deer has CWD on this property and the remains stay on that property, that's not terrible. It was already there. But we want to give folks the better option. The best option is probably put it underground right there. And if folks have backhoes or tractors with buckets, they can do it. This protein is so resilient that it can live for decades in the soil.
Wow.
And not only that, it can be taken up by plants and ingested. It can be moved by scavengers. Again, we can't get it. And so it's not, you can get paranoid about it if you're not careful. It's not good. It's not good, but it's not going to be the end of deer hunting. It's going to be something that we have to learn to live with and something that we have to learn to manage. So.
I would be fine with doing away with it, period. And that way.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're talking about that much anyway.
Well, I just did it as 27, using his numbers. 2,700 times 8 is $21,600.
Yeah, but a lot of those are putting trash bags and fed in with your regular garbage too. They don't pay the $8.
Or they're left on the landscape.
That's right.
Correct. The majority of them.
I thought it was a no-brainer too, but I thought everybody ought to hear it
Yeah,
and see.
I'm with you.
I'm good with doing away with it, period.
See what the consequences
Thank
are.
you.
Move it Monday night.
So direct that it be put on the agenda, okay?
And if everybody's all right, we'll just put it on consent agenda.
We can do that.
All right.
I'd like to mention one other thing, since I'm already here. This is not maybe something to vote on, but just something to put on your radar. And I know that you guys come from diverse backgrounds, and maybe one of you or two of you might be hunters at best, probably statistically. But one of the best things that we can do for all disease management is to manage deer at lower populations. I'm a deer hunter. I love deer, and when I go deer hunting, I want to see deer. But one of the tenets for responsible deer management has always been to manage it at a lower number than what the land can support. And so whatever decision-making county officials might have in allowing hunting, encouraging hunting, opening up properties for hunting, and you can do it all kinds of ways. I would just encourage you as managers to consider that one of your responsibilities is to lower deer populations. And I'll hush with that.
Thank
All right?
you.
I had 26 in my yard this morning.
That's too many.
Yeah. And I see them on 29 all the way heading into Rockingham County every morning, and there's so many deer strikes that we have just because of that population, so.
I'm Officer Walker. I'm one of your officers here in Davidson County. And if anybody needs a business card, I have some in my pocket here. I was just gonna reiterate on, clearing the fees for taking the deer to the landfill. I actually just got a call, yesterday. Some of you may know Robert Smith on Linwood Southmont Road. He sent me a picture of a garbage bag that was thrown out on the road, in the middle of the road, with deer bones and just basically a carcass. So I would say it would help some with the litter and the trash, because we get calls nonstop during the hunting season with, dump carcasses and so on, whether it be in barrels, bags, just thrown off the back of the truck, you name it. I feel like it will definitely help some. Not.
What do you ask DOT to come get that if that occurs? Or?
I know some. Depends on what the county has in place. But I know when I worked in Gaston County, folks would call in and say, "Hey, there's a dead deer here," and the DOT had their specific crew, and they would go around and pick up, dead animals off the road or off the side of the road, just one to prevent smell, two, keep your buzzards and vultures out of the road, and so on. But
is it against the law? I mean, I know it is to throw a bag of something out, but is it against the law for them just to throw a carcass out on the?
If they do not own that property, yes, it is littering, and they do face that penalty of littering, which is roughly $200 fine and cost of court.
But you gotta catch them in the act, so.
Right.
Pretty hard to do.
What have y'all seen regarding to this, the carcasses being left behind, the coyotes? Because I've seen an increase in coyotes locally.
Yeah,
have y'all seen that statewide, or?
I think we can fairly confidently say that coyotes are well established. I think 10 years ago I told somebody there won't be more in the future. We've got as many as we can hold, and I think there's more. But I wouldn't tie it to the deer carcasses.
Okay.
I mean, they're just extremely adaptable, and they can live off of a really wide range of different food items and don't seem to have too hard of a time getting by. So,
Amen.
But yeah, a lot of them.
10-4.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
If you don't mind, if y'all would give Sherry y'all's card so she could share,
Yeah.
with whoever may want one.
Man, thank you.
Okay. Further there, tax releases, refunds by Tax Administrator David Rickard.
Appreciate y'all's time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm here to talk about your favorite subject, taxes. I have before you 3 requests for releases, and these stem from some appeals that went out, or came in after the bills went out. The listing period's in January. Most businesses don't list until April. April 15th's the deadline. That gives us from middle of April till the end of June to get all that processed and get the bills out. So the statute says they have 30 days after the notice goes out, which the notice in this case is the bill. Business personal is revalued every year. We attempt to use a schedule of values or book that's sent out by the state, and it prescribes how to value just about anything that's used in business anywhere in North Carolina. So, having said that, the first request we got, and we got 3 here to deal with out of 3,300, so it's not too bad. But the first one was Carastar. Do you have this information in your packet?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. They did made some kind of mistake using our new online system, which caused them to double list some equipment. So they're asking for an adjustment of $711,000 in valuation, which amounts to about $3,800 in taxes. And that one was pretty evident that it was basically an illegal tax because we taxed them twice on it. Unfortunately, after the bill goes out, it creates a situation where we have to do a release or a refund. So that's what I'm asking for on that one. And incentives, there was a study done when they moved here about their business personal, and they thought they'd be paying less or about the same as they were in Tennessee. When the bill came out, it was quite a bit more, and the business owner was shocked. So we met with him, and what we found out was we think his accountant used book value. We don't really know, but his accountant used some inflated numbers, or numbers that resulted in an inflated bill, he thought. So we talked to him. His situation is pretty unique. They do weaving, label weaving, sort of like Wrights of Thomasville does, except his goes into like towels and textiles and things like that. So it's a lower end product. It's not a real high margin. He has to operate on volume. And the equipment, he's purchasing new equipment now for less than it cost 3 to 5 years ago. So the market's changed. Most of his equipment's made overseas, so the dollar exchange rate's affected that. So we felt like there was some economic obsolescence there, and we recommend an adjustment to his bill of $945,000, and that would reduce his taxes by $12,800. And this was his first year listing, so that's the reason the discrepancy. The third one is Owens Brockway. You're familiar with, it used to be Owens, Illinois, the glass plant. We were contacted by their tax rep. The others we dealt with was straight with the company. But the tax rep is Kroll, and this one I had to run by our auditor, Phil Evans, because they were asking for quite a bit more. But when we researched this, we met with them on a Skype call or team call, I forgot what it was, but they were asking for us to change the schedule on their furnaces. And we looked at it, and we had them on a 15-year schedule. They have to rebuild those furnaces about every 7 or 8 years, just like PPG. And so we looked at Nippon Electric, and they were on a 7-year or 8-year cycle, so we moved them to the same cycle, which lowered their tax bill. They have to rebuild those furnaces to keep them operating efficiently. The other thing was some idle equipment that they have, and they were asking for an additional economic obsolescence adjustment for that. And we've got that spelled out in this recommendation, I think, from business personal on that. So are there any questions on that?
No, sir.
That's all we have.
What's the amount of the tax deduction on the latter?
On the last one, it's $24,891. And they're one of our big, probably top 5 businesses in the county.
Yeah.
They average around $50 million, and they're equivalent to Kimberly-Clark or PPG, probably. They're in that class. They were one of our biggest till we got Unilin and Egger.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I have a motion to move this to the Do I need a motion to move it to
Consensus to put it on.
consent agenda, to move it to?
Consent agenda?
I'm good with that.
Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Regarding the, purchase of the Zoll AR booth service for the ambulance building, Mr. Martin?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm gonna ask Christy Stillwell, our Finance Director, to come up, to help me out a little bit on this one. Some of you all may recall, back in the summer, I sent an email out about our ambulance billing, and where we were at that time, and I mentioned a product in that email called Payer Logic, which was a service and application that could be used by our folks in finance to be able to go and search for active insurance policies. As you may recall, there was a large bucket, so to speak, of patients that fell into a category of either not having insurance at all, that couldn't be verified, or they were self-pay. In some cases, the demographic information doesn't get back to finance to be able to go and accurately search that. And so that particular application it will go out and actually crawl, so to speak, looking for last active insurance for a person, verify their demographic information, address, date of birth, social security number, those sorts of things. Zoll AR Boost is Payer Logic. The name of the product has changed. So as part of that, Christy and I set up a meeting with one of the representatives from Zoll to do a presentation on this. Very impressive software, how it works. Basically, they charge per claim, or what we consider per click. They charge a $2 charge for each claim that you go in and to be able to search for insurance information, things like that. It's a one-time charge, so they're able to go into that claim an unlimited number of times. So if the first attempt didn't succeed, they can go back and they're not charged again. So per claim, it's a $2 charge. As part of that presentation, you see in your packet, I put kind of their sales pitch, so to speak, on the front that explains the capabilities and benefits of their software. But there's another page here with a pie chart. As part of that, we requested from them, we'd love to get a trial of this and see how it works. Well, they wouldn't give us a month or 2 months of a trial, but what they did do is they said, well, we'll take some of your uncollectible accounts and we'll go and we'll run the product on it for you, and then we'll give you the result free of charge. So what you see there is they went and did a search through a little over 1,000 folks. What they came back with was 21% of that 1,000 they were able to find active insurance for. And that's, you see on the next page, a listing of all the insurance companies that they found of that 216. So you see North Carolina Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, Aetna, Humana, so on and so forth. What they gave us back was a very large spreadsheet, a giant spreadsheet with information in there of their address, their social security number was in there, all of that information that they could then go back and try to file claims on this. So based on this, and again, it's free of charge, that they gave to us, our logic was, well, if we get 5% of this, that's going to generate at least another $35,000 there in revenue that will come in. So that is that piece. Kind of getting to the very last page on the back. The product is they offer 2 contracts, a minimum of 36 months or 60 months. It does incorporate with our Central Square software. It incorporates with the ambulance billing that we currently use, and then also I think EMS is looking to change their software that they've identified that they want to go with. This will work with it as well. But I've given you a little estimate, and Debbie's put it up on the screen here. And this is kind of backing into our numbers here, figuring it on an average call charge of $698. That's assuming 10 miles of ambulance transport at a little over $10 a mile, plus the advanced life support
emergency service charges that's charged through EMS, which is a little over $585, somewhere in that neighborhood. An estimated amount of uncollected calls, if we had this software in 2022, fiscal year that just ended on June 30th, on a 2% improvement, we would have generated somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000 of additional revenue. And the options that, or what I put here in 2%, 3%, 5%, 7%, 2% is what we consider a conservative estimate, Christie and I. 3% and 5% is what we've jokingly said, this is planet Earth. Okay, this we feel comfortable is going to land somewhere in that neighborhood. 7% is if this thing works as great as the next thing since sliced bread, we may see a 7%. Zoll advertises up to 12%, and I think that's advertising, so I'm kind of ruling that out, but I put it there for your reference. I direct kind of back to the green box there of 3 to 5%, so we're based on the last year, it would have been somewhere between $188,000 and $313,000. We have to estimate our annual claims. After speaking with the gentleman at Zoll and back with Christie again, the first year we're looking at 18,000 claims, so that's $2 per click. Every claim that comes in, we would be clicking on this to go see what we can find. So the cost for the first year would be $36,000. So based on that, we feel fairly confident this is going to pay for itself with what we will generate. There is a point where there will be a diminishing return. Obviously, the more you use it, the more it'll collect, but also the more you use it, at some point it'll hit a diminishing return. But I don't think we're close to that yet. So.
Reading this correctly, so the
Yes, sir.
18,000, that's the calls that we have annually, right?
Correct.
And then the estimated cost, $698.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So
that's an average estimated cost.
average.
Yeah, it could be higher, it could be lower, depending on the call.
So you're looking, wow, that's like 12, that's in the millions, I mean, and we're getting 752 after this, is what you're projecting?
Well, no, that's what Zoll said, that they think it could generate up to that amount. I'm looking more in the 3 to 5% range.
Either way, return on investment should be in the first year.
Right, and it'll be an annual contract. The 18,000 estimated claims, looking at the past couple of years, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 16,000 claims. We've also got an additional person in the office now, so in theory that should boost that up a little bit. So I wanted to build that into something that was a little more reasonable as well for Zoll and for us. And again, after the first year, if we're using less than that, they'll amend it down. If we're using it more than that, obviously they're going to want to amend it up.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you use this on every call that comes in? I mean, you gotta
Yeah.
use it on every.
Yeah,
Every new call, yep.
It's built into the current software, so basically when you go in to key the call, you would click the button and it would scan that database to see what eligible insurance is available.
How do y'all do it now?
To kind of set the scene, it's a time-consuming process. We have access to Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shield, specific insurance carriers. So the ladies in ambulance billing will log into each of these
Doing it
websites
manually.
and
It'll
click
save
through.
money.
This'll save time
my
just
gosh.
in people doing it.
Yeah,
Right.
there's
So with the
efficiency to
dramatic,
be gained.
right, with the dramatic increase in the call volume in the last few years, we see the time, the benefit to time savings, is just incredible. So
Pay
the
for
extra
itself in
collections
time
is
savings.
great.
Amen.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
I mean,
You're looking at, if we're doing 83% now, you're looking at conservatively, or be doing about 86%?
We'll be looking at, well, let me explain that 3 to 5%. That is a figuring of the difference between what we've collected and the claims that we haven't collected on. If we pick up 5% of that difference, we would get $313,000 in additional revenue.
we're almost at 9,000 estimated uncollected calls at a rate of $698, which is $6.2 million. I mean, what we can collect out of that $6.2 million out there in the nebulous, not only like Todd said, is it going to help us on saving time, but if we can get that down, that's a huge pot of money.
Yeah, and to that, Commissioner Elliott's point, that's correct. That's absolutely correct. In 2022, what's sitting out there still left to be collected is about 6.2 million.
I'm good with it.
Me
I'm
too.
good with it. Let's do it.
Amen. Good job.
Only thing that I would ask for is direction on, do we wanna go a 3-year or a 5-year subscription on this? My recommendation would be, and I normally like to go longer, and the longest is humanly possible, but I would recommend we do 3 years.
First go around?
Yeah, the first go around. It locks it in at $2 for 3, but if we see that something funny happens or anything, then we're not into it. We're not committed super long term.
So what do you gotta do if you want out of it in the 3-year period?
I don't know that.
I don't know
Good
that
to
there
know.
is
We
an
can,
option.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're bound to it at that point.
We need to see the contract.
Yeah. And it's gonna be based on an estimated amount of calls. I would be sending this back to the gentleman at Zoll to get us an amended contract, to get something back to us, because Chuck still needs to review this as well.
Right. So, I mean, hopefully it works and you want it from now on, but
Amen.
it may not be as good as it claims, but y'all haven't tried it, y'all just going off of their.
Correct. Their trial was all that we were able to do. I think Jason and I both agreed that we would have preferred to do a year.
And then give us the option to buy
That was
up.
not an option. It was not for a lack of trying.
No, I've tried, I sailed that ship again yesterday, trying to
That's
negotiate that.
impressive, so we'll see.
On all of the seniors with the, Medicare information that they have a copay, probably around $295 for an ambulance fee. Does this, collect, I know you're gonna collect from Blue Cross or Humana or whatever, after the $295, does this get to $295?
Yes, it would.
I think you guys are working on the contract with Blue Cross Blue
Yeah.
Shield, right? Right.
Okay, move us to the 10th?
Absolutely.
Do we wanna move to the 10th, or do we
Well,
wanna
we need
make
to-
sure
we need
that
to get
got
an
the
agreement,
contract in
yeah.
place and we're happy with it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a rush to do it to the 10th, and I've explained to
Okay.
Tim Malone with Zoll that we wouldn't be looking at this probably starting the contract until 1st of November anyway.
Okay, you just wanna move it to,
Well,
leave-
Mr. Chairman, if we
leave it
can, we'll
open.
get with the
More
Zoll and get an
information.
amended agreement and bring it forward when Chuck
Sounds
gets
good.
back. It may be into November before we do it, but we just want to get a feel for where, and
Okay.
can I say something else real quick? 2 things. One, I don't know if you guys have, this might be the first time Chrissy's gotten up here, I'm not sure, so, Chrissy Stillwell, your finance director, I just want to say this is kind of off topic, this last year transitioning from a 30-year employee in that job to now has not been, for lack of a better word, easy task.
Yeah.
Christy has done an amazing job. I've been very impressed. What little bit I've had, spend time in different areas of this county, finance department's in good hands. I'm also again, this is a morning of pride for me as far as Danny's presentation. This group here did a good job of flushing this out as far as I'm concerned. They heard y'all's request to take a look at this, got an option, even got them a contract working now with Blue Cross Blue Shield. So things we haven't had before, but the level of, again, the finance department's cooking on all 8 cylinders to be able to take time to do this at this level and get you some answers turns out to be some good stuff. I'm very impressed. It's always a prideful moment when staff comes up and it can present something in a format that everybody understands and make it pretty easy for everybody. So it's not an easy thing to do, so I just want to give shout outs to people when I see it. So thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good job.
All right, request for veterans parking, Commissioner Shores?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Rick and I have been talking, and, we think that it would be a phenomenal idea to purchase some, and you have it here in front of you, but purchase some, veteran parking, to put, Rick, if you will come up and, you got 2 different signs. This one would be for veterans parking, in general, and then this one is, reserved for combat wounded. This is actually a handicap, parking space. Dwayne, you're here too, right? I'm correct in that, correct? That this is still a state handicap parking space. So, to me, it's pretty simple. If Tractor Supply can do this for veterans, why can the county not do it? We're fixing to do, a resolution, about our veterans. We honor our veterans in every meeting. We're, along with, Wake County, pushing the Operation Greenlight, and I think that this just goes hand in hand with showing our veterans. And Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you told me we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 veterans in Davidson County?
Between 9,500 and 10,000.
Okay.
That's not counting surviving spouses of veterans who've passed away. We have no accurate way of collecting that data.
Wow. And so what I'm asking, or what we're asking, is that we would put, I would like to see the handicap part, the combat veteran, park handicap spots in all of our county locations, along with, one or two of the veterans parking, reserved veterans parking, is what I would like to see us do. Rick, anything add?
This has been brought to my attention by other veterans who come into our facility. It was brought to my attention by a veteran probably about 3 months ago, and he just asked a question. He said, I've noticed at Lowe's they have veteran parking spots. Why don't you guys have one? You deal with a lot of veterans. And I got caught flat-footed. I said, well, I don't know why we don't have one. So I approached James Shores, and he said, well, it sounds like a great idea to me. Let's see where we can go with it. We average about 75 or so veteran who come to our office per month. That number is continuing to increase each month. So I believe the spots will be utilized, at least here at this building. I can't speak to like the libraries or someplace like that, but I'm sure if they're there, they would be utilized.
Let me ask you this, James. Yes. I mean, I'm good with that, but, with the veterans parking, I get it, and I told you, I think before my dad's Purple Heart veteran, or was, but couldn't we just do a veterans parking and do that, and then, most of them, if they combat wounded, they'll be parking in handicap anyhow, a good chance. And I get it, you wanna maybe differentiate that from handicap, but if we do, I just don't want these things to sit there empty, unutilized. So if they all said this here, veteran parking, then they may get utilized, more often.
I'm fine with either. Especially here, I'd like to have at least one. And Rick and I talked about it. Casey and I actually talked about it as well. We could do the wounded parking, on the side that we all come in, right next to veterans. On the opposite side of the door, we've got the parking for the...
Well, they need to go upside the handicap, as close to the door as they can get, either on this side.
Right. But if we could at least do that one here, then, and I'm fine with doing, just the veteran parking in the other locations. And I know Dwayne brought up that red fades and whatnot, and I actually found some that are aluminum, DOT approved, the 3M, and they have a 10-year warranty.
Can I mention something about that? Absolutely. So the North Carolina Department of Corrections provides plates and specialty signs like this for uber cheap when it comes to state contract and local government. So I would advise that we check in with them, because I think they make a veterans like parking tag.
If they don't, they can.
That's right. Yeah.
They can make a
What is that? $200 a sign?
No.
Time you do the bracket and the pole and the inserts and the sign itself.
Can you help us out on that?
Probably close to 200.
No, you're fine. What do you think it would cost so we're talking the sign, the pole, labor, what do you think it would cost to put a...
Commissioner Shores, before we do that though, can I also just ask, I need clarification here. In Facilities Committee, we talked about this a little bit. We got a list of, remember the list of locations for, what was the item? The sidewalks. There's actually, when you say locations in the county, I guess we gotta define that too. There's actually a lot more than you realize. It's like 42 different locations. And I don't think some of them are gonna be applicable to this, but how many different places do we wanna put it is another question, because that's gonna affect the cost situation.
The list included the spaces that we have, like over on Guilford Street, that we lease out to, Thomasville Community Ministries, that we don't have any folks in. So.
There's a lot of places you would.
Right, sure, and I would agree with that. I would say.
Just where the public comes.
Yeah, you would want our governmental center in Thomasville and our governmental center here, probably the health department, And, I mean,
They work that out. We were talking about the cost.
The post is about $80 probably.
Bracket?
You don't have a bracket, you got a bolt that goes through right here
Okay,
with washers in the back, so I don't know what these signs cost. I see you got $25.
Yeah, it was about $25 on Amazon. Now, I don't know about we need to check in on the state contract deal
Should be
with
able to get a good sign for that. I mean, I buy the handicap signs, which is the same thing, and so you should be able to get a nice sign reflective for around $25, so. I'm guessing you got $100 plus labor.
125 or so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Todd on that, veterans, because I go down to Lowe's and all the veteran slots are taken, and most of the time, the Purple Hearts are empty. So they're not being utilized the way that the veterans are.
I'd hate for a veteran to have to ride by one, you know.
Yeah.
Just reserved for this.
And I'm fine with that.
You know, I'm just trying
You know,
to
if,
think.
yeah.
I think that's a good idea to do the veterans.
Could we at least do, one of the wounded ones, like here at this building? You know, do that here?
I'm okay with that, and we'll see how much is utilized, and then if we see there's always a car parked in this one, and never a car parked in this one, then we may not.
Are you not gonna have a veterans, you're gonna have both here?
I would like to have both here.
I would just have the veterans, because you're just taking up a slot that you could use for veterans.
I mean,
And the veterans are the ones.
I kinda agree with that, I was just trying to appease.
We announce it every time we have a meeting, and sometimes it's flat full of people, and I ask for veterans, and there's not but one or two, possibly three. So, you know, I think that the veterans.
We just need to get utilized more, Jim.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
You know, and I get it, like I told you, man, every time I
I
got
just
my
wanna-
dad's Purple Heart in my office, and every time I see it, I know what these guys went through, but.
And Debbie reminded me this morning that we're a Purple Heart County, so I just wanted to make sure that we're doing everything that we can for our veterans. As long, you know, as long as we're doing the veteran signs, I'm good with that.
The thing about it is, unlike a handicap that's got a little sign that you hang on your mirror, you don't have any way of checking whether or not the person parking there is Purple Heart or not.
So we
You
need
know,
to get-
one thing we
need to
could
get
do-
We need to get a number,
yeah.
and then have it, once we get the number, and then we can
We
put it
can,
on the agenda for approval.
we can make
Or-
a sticker to go on our additional handicap signage that we've already got up that would also honor the Purple Heart, and we could put those on those additional, because they've already got the handicap plaques also, but we could honor those spaces we already have with just a simple acknowledgement that this is for all handicap, but also our wounded veterans, so.
I recommend that we just go ahead with the veteran signs and find out how many we're gonna need. Because if they're handicapped, they're gonna park in the handicap slot anyway.
That's right, they've got their handicap placard, you know.
Okey-doke.
So any idea how many?
That's what I said, we gotta have a
We'll
number.
find out.
We gotta
Dwayne, you got
decide
any
what
idea
buildings-
how?
To work with maybe Dwayne's folks to see, I mean, 'cause the folks at the different buildings are gonna know probably how many people come and park in their lots at a certain time, and may be able to give us a better idea of how many they think that they would need in each building.
I think most buildings one would suffice.
Yeah.
You know.
The main library maybe would have more visitors than the outerlying libraries. But
Well, y'all can, get up the number and bring
Senior Services
it
and Parks
back.
and Rec, with the folks that they have coming in, a
Right.
couple it may be that
No
we
sense
need
in
a couple
trying to
there
get the
too.
number today.
Yeah, we don't have any idea.
And there might be areas where we don't even need a pole, we just put it on the wall in front of and that would save a lot of money and time.
Other times we
So
don't even
Dwayne,
need
you
the
wanna
sign.
bring that back to us?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay.
Find out how many we need.
So-
It's no big deal.
And then we
So
put
you
that
guys
on
will get
for
together
approval.
and-
We can,
Okay.
Thank you, Nate, on every.
And once we get that, we can put it on for approval, once we just know how many. That sound good to
That
everybody?
was my question, do you put one in the courthouse or not? It's a county building.
It's a county building.
I mean, that's
It's a
kinda why I
county
was
lot.
wanting to ask now, 'cause it really what's gonna happen is, we bring a list back, we gotta we all know what buildings we're talking about here in terms of public use. So courthouse is a good one for major use.
It'd be a whole lot easier if you just list the buildings that they think is gonna need one, and then we can scratch the ones that we don't think they need.
That's certainly what we can do.
Instead of trying to take the time right now to figure out.
I agree, I'm just
We'll take the time at that time.
Thank you, Wayne.
Appreciate it.
Rick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that time.
Yes, sir. Accessibility for Parks Grant Program, Mr. Marshburn, and he's got his tie on, guys, get ready.
Uh-oh.
He's got backup too.
You say we're out of time.
He doesn't have backup, he's just introducing her. He's
Yeah,
making-
exactly. This is actually not even mine to talk to you about. I would just like to give kudos to Miss Byerly. She has took this on all herself. This grant, she's helped us with the other two grants that we were able to get this year. And she took this one on herself to do all the public meetings, do everything. So she is here to present to you, and I'm gonna just get out of the way. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
As he said, I'm Monica Byerly with the Parks and Recreation Department, and I'm here to talk to you about the Accessibilities for Park Grant. I'm really just wanting to get your permission to apply for this grant.
Excuse me, am I the only one that can't hear her?
No, you're gonna have to speak up just a little bit. She's very soft-spoken. I was trying to listen.
Okay. I'm here to get permission to apply for the Accessibilities for Parks grant. This grant, focuses on giving recreational opportunities to children and veterans with a physical or intellectual disability. We are looking to add amenities to the West Campus, which you know houses Parks and Rec and Senior Services, so hits both of those populations. The new amenities would include a paved half-mile walking trail, an outdoor gym with a shade structure, an all-inclusive playground, an outdoor pickleball court, a naturescape, picnic shelters, benches, and water fountains. All equipment and structures will comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility guidelines. There is not a park right now in Davidson County fully all-inclusive, so this would be a game changer for the county. We are in partnership with Senior Services for this grant. It is an 80-20 match. Our total request to the grant would be $500,000, leaving $130,000 for the county match. Senior Services has agreed to put up $50,000 of that, leaving a remainder of $80,000 that if we were approved for the grant, I would be asking the county to help with. That's really all I've got. You have any questions?
When's the grant due?
November 1st.
It's gotta be done then?
It's got to be turned in then, yes, sir.
And it's already been approved? Or are you just following it? I'm sorry, I just can't hear what you said.
I'm sorry. Yes, the Park Commission Committee approved it. I've been working on it, so I'm coming to you asking for your approval to actually submit it.
Okay.
So when will you know if it's approved by,
I'm not sure, probably by the beginning of the year, about March.
so this is just the application to see?
This is the application, but of course, if approved,
We need to find
yeah.
Are there any strings for this?
80,000.
It's $80,000.
Okay.
Yeah, the county's portion will be $130,000. Senior Services has agreed to give $50,000 of that, so leaving a remainder of $80,000. And that's a lot of bang for your buck for $80,000.
Thomas applied for one grant and they wanted to own the park, so. they
Yeah.
turned that down.
No, sir, this isn't anything like that.
Just wanna make sure.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with submitting the grant.
Put it on consent agenda?
We can do that.
David?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Please pass along the piece of things too.
Okay, continue discussion on the federal legislative goals process, Ms. Harris.
This is gonna be an easy one. I've not had any goals submitted.
Wow, motion to adjourn?
Trish got up with me this morning and said she was working on one. I sent her an email back saying I needed it before the meeting so we could get it because they're due tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Move adjourned.
It has to do with, getting the money from, the state. There was a law, legislation law that was passed about, and I wrote it down, there was funding that the state ended up passing that took our LME MCOs, and what it did is it took a big list of providers, and the state said, well, we've got too many providers, we want to bring it down to here. Well, our DSS departments are having real bad issues with the state Health and Human Services, and they're having issues finding people to house kids with intellectual disabilities. And legislature was passed in Raleigh saying, because they wanted to bring that down. Well, our DSS director and myself and Rockingham were talking about this, and she's been in Phil Berger's office trying to get legislation passed, because what they did is now it put too much power in the provider's hands. So you've got people like Bayada, you've got all these different companies that will take the kid with the developmental disabilities that would cost, $100 to provide service, but it's going to take a whole lot more hassle. They're turning those kids down, and they're taking the easy kids over here that they can take and care for. And it's ended up doing the kids with developmental disabilities an injustice. And we're having to house kids internally in our departments like we have. And when you look at a liability source, that's the biggest liability the county has, is when we're having to take care. We've got social workers taking care of kids with disabilities that don't have the capabilities, or even it's not even in their job requirement to be keeping kids with developmental disabilities in-house. So trying to find them a place to stay when we don't have providers to do it, because the state's kind of limited those providers.
Would there be state, that'd be state.
That's something that state's done, not the federal done.
That's right.
Because these are our federal legislative goals. We did the state ones back in September.
Well, that's something we need to be talking about anyhow with the state, because
Okay.
that affects Trish and Felissa Farrell. Felissa Farrell's our director. Trish is having the same issues, and I thought that was something we needed to talk about.
I think it certainly needs to be a direct.
Maybe something that we could do, something and get it to.
Put it on your list.
Felissa to send all the information.
Put it on your list for next year.
Okay. We can't wait till next year.
You can't submit a state goal this year. They're already submitted.
Brother, I can drive to Raleigh anytime.
They what?
We need more.
Well, that's fine, ride around.
Touch base with Steve on that,
Yeah.
sure.
Good motion, Joe?
Well,
Oh, wait, sorry.
just say one more thing about that. The LME MCOs have been granted a longer period of time to work on this area. And it deals with the providers. So I think that they were gonna have to deal with what they were dealing with, and they were getting rejected. So, that's gonna be good, because they're not gonna have to, it should fix things, yeah. They just sent that out from the LME MCOs at the Sand Hills meeting last month, so I think it's gonna get better.
And they're with.
They're extending it so that they can work on getting more providers.
That's good.
Okay.
They're with Sand Hills too. so-
Contractors, yeah, more contractors.
The problem with getting providers is the providers have to agree to go by the standards that the LME and CO has.
Exactly.
And that's, a lot of times they won't do that. They would just as soon operate outside of that as to sign on. But, the lady from Sand Hill said that any time we had a provider that we wanted them to look at, they would look at it. So if you know somebody that's a provider that's not on the list, just tell the folks at Sand Hills, they'll put them on.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to update, Justice and Public Safety Committee did our legislative goals, state legislative goals, and one of the things that we were able to get in was the folks, Tim and them, came from Family Services and talking about the 50Bs and so on and so forth. there were some other folks across the state that had that same concern. So, it wasn't worded exactly the way I wanted it worded, but it was actually put in the state legislative goals to get the state to fund that software and that ability for the domestic violence stuff. Just wanted to update the board.
It is in,
That e-filing?
it is in the process.
It's in the process.
Had
It still
not
has
been
to be.
approved.
I didn't say it had been approved.
Okay, I
Mr.
thought you
McCord.
did, I'm sorry.
I said that it was in the legislative goals to be brought up and finally voted on.
Okay. Move adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
I wouldn't criticize you, man.
I know.